Hello, welcome back to the Ayurveda and Women's Health podcast, An Evolution to Your Higher Self. Once again, I have the beautiful Anna with me today. We are going to be discussing big life I was going to say transactions, but it's not. It's big life transitions from your mid-30s through to your 60s. And what's really funny is, both myself and Anna have gone through a lot of these recently, but Anna actually suggested this topic. And as we do, we get on and we just chat our way before we hit record. And then she's like, what are we even speaking about today? I'm like, just basically what we've been speaking about. Big life transitions and how we manage those differently in our mid-30s to our 60s and what they're all about and why it can feel like this big, powerful and beautiful time or this absolute chaotic midlife crisis time and how we can navigate those. So welcome back, Anna. Love having you here. And from all the feedback, so do our listeners.
Oh, it's so fun to be here. Like I keep saying, best part of my month when we catch up. And do you know what? Sometimes I think we should press record from the get-go because some of the gold is pre-recording. So looking forward to where this takes us.
Absolutely. But then I'd have to put a lot of disclaimers on the episode. We might get kicked off Spotify or Apple. No, not that bad. Well, we are both talking about it's not really like a big life transition, but we're both feeling a little bit tired today. I've just come back from a weekend away at Prana Fest, which was absolutely magical. It was awesome. Prana Fest is a big festival here in Australia where there's lots of different artists and musicians, yoga classes. It's like a 3-night festival. There's different things like party Pilates and lots of ceremonial cacao and breath work and all of the things. So I should be feeling really alive and vitalized because it was so much fun. But I'm just feeling a little bit. And I think that's after a big weekend, we don't recover as well, even though we're completely sober and everything. But it's just that overwhelm of the energy, even when it's really positive, lots of energy, it takes us a little while to recover from. So anyway, that's how I'm feeling. How was your weekend, Anna?
Well, my weekend was complete opposite to yours, full of football and full of workshops. So as many of your listeners know, I do a lot of work with athletes and I did a fantastic workshop last night for some hockey players. And it was really cool because it was an actual club and they brought together 3 of their teams and some were teenagers and then they went all the way through to senior hockey. So it was really cool to have that diverse range in one room, and the incredible conversation that we had around identity, vulnerability, feeling safe within teams, feeling safe when you're playing opposition who potentially are more aggressive and assertive, and how you can show up to that. So yeah, I've had a really cool weekend of connection, but connection through sport. No yoga on my weekend.
No yoga or static dancing.
No ecstatic dancing where I'm from.
Now with people dressed up as fairies and elves, all the things.
Couple of rainbows and unicorns, but no fairies or elves on my side of the world.
Well, let's just dive straight in. I'm going to let you kick it off by answering my question, which is, why do so many women feel like they should have it all figured out by now? I hear that all of the time. Women in their late 30s, their 40s, even their 50s are like, I feel lost. Everyone else looks like they've got their life together. They're in partnerships, they've got their career, they've got kids or whatnot. And I, quote, the person saying it, feels like I don't have anything figured out and I'm mid-age, I'm this old, I should. So why do you think that is the case? And also, I would love to discuss why this belief can be so dangerous.
Two powerful questions to kick off. Well, I saw a meme the other day and it said, and it was like a little Barbie doll and she was in the bathroom crying, and it said something like, when I'm the adult, when I've been asked to solve a problem and I'm the person that's got to solve the problem, and I'm, looking around. And I think, As well, there's a couple of things. Society tells us, it's certainly our age, the respect your elders. And so when you grow up with a belief of respecting my elders, you look to them because they are supposed to be the oracle of the answers. So there's probably quite a lot of unconscious belief around older people know better. And I know that to be true even in my family dynamic. I'm the youngest one. When I'm with my siblings, I automatically go to reverting back to being the youngest child, even though I'm 48 and I've got my own points of view and bits and pieces. So I think that respecting elders bit is part of the puzzle. So then when we're the older ones and when we're in midlife or whatever age, we now look at and go, okay, well, I'm supposed to be the age that I've got it all together. So
That's a
that's
good one. I've not actually thought of it like that before. So that's sort of like a really new perspective that you've pulled in. And it's so true because when you think of it, it's almost like you get to this age and then you've got imposter syndrome of being this age. You're like,
yeah,
what? Especially like, growing up, you'd see the shows like The Golden Girls. Did you have that where
yes, yeah,
and
yeah.
they all looked about 70, but they were meant to be in their 40s. And you're like, hang a minute, I'm supposed to be that age now. And yeah, it's like you get imposter syndrome. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I just think that we're all just winging it. When I was a kid, my best mate Katie, we used to play the sunbathing game, and we would pull all the pull all her curtains. Bearing in mind we lived in England, right? And we used to pretend that we were living in Australia, and we would turn her bedroom light on, and that was the sun. And we put our bikinis on, and we'd pretend to be 16, and we couldn't wait
My
to
God.
be 16 because we were going to be so mature and have it all together. And then we hit 16 and we were like, whoa, this is not Australia. This isn't like the sunbathing game.
Yeah. Oh my, that's so funny. I've never had to play the sunbathing game because I've lived sunbathing my whole life.
Yeah, I know. You're so lucky. You just don't know how lucky you are. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think there's a lot of, and if you think about human nature, when I then, so when I get XYZ, then I'll be XYZ. This midlife transition, when I'm older, I should have my shit together. Well, according to who?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's not until you're in it and you start having honest conversations, you realize that everybody else is feeling the same as you. But my parents didn't tell me how hard it was for them because they were too busy living it. So I didn't grow up going, oh, right, when I get to 40, they'll find it difficult too. I just looked at them and was like, my gosh, they're nailing life.
Yeah. And I think our parents, when they were our age, or I mean, our parents are quite different ages actually, but because I think your parents are a generation sort of older. My mum had me really young, so so there's a bit of a difference, but still, it's the same thing. Like, if they were having sort of struggles, it was either only spoken about very intimately with their immediate sort of friend circle, or I'm assuming this, so I might be wrong here, but maybe more so in your parents' age group, it was actually sort of frowned upon to even talk about your struggles. You probably didn't do that so much, so no one had anything to compare their life to. Whereas now we have everyone putting their best foot forward on social media for us to compare our life and where we're at in our life. And I just recently was watching this reel actually by a friend of mine, Nicole. She runs She Speaks, and she was talking about how much of a struggle it has been in her business and how much money she's actually lost and how she's been crying behind the scenes, and how she's having to reshuffle and reframe her whole business at the moment. She's being really honest doing like these little segments on her Instagram. And I was like, wow, because, I've watched her journey and it looks, and she is successful in her own right, but it looks so successful. Like there's no issues in that business or anything. And you just don't know until someone's brave enough or vulnerable enough to share where they're actually at. So I feel like the generations before us didn't have as much to go by or compare.
Yeah, they only had their town, right?
Mm.
And, the newspapers and their imagination, whereas our imagination of what our business can look like is then distorted because we just go on and our algorithm will show us all of the coaches that are doing all of the things their way, and all of a sudden, consciously or unconsciously, there's that comparison. I do think there's a level of expectation on self as well. You know, when you are somebody who has high expectations of and aspirations, and you're ambitious and you have things that you want to achieve in your life, often those types of people, and I'm putting myself in that camp, we're always looking at the next thing. And so therefore it creates a level of pressure, whether it's ambition or expectation, probably a bit of both. But it can easily fall away. You can forget how far you've come, and you can forget that where you are now was actually the goal that you had for yourself 5 years ago. And so when we're thinking about big life transitions and all of a sudden the decades are going on and on and on, you know, it's important for us to stop, slow down and go, okay, hold on a minute. You know, having a podcast is something that said I wanted to do. And 5 years ago, I wasn't doing it. So let's just have a quick pat on the back for that. Or, you know, maybe I am more of a thought leader than I thought I was, or whatever it might be. Everybody's different in where they're at with it. But I think, you know, slowing down and seeing where we are and where we've come from and how far we've evolved is really important.
Absolutely. And I think even from like an Ayurvedic perspective, our mid-30s, our 40s, and even our early 50s, it's sort of it it's reflective of that pitta phase of life. And that's the time for transformation. It's that fire. It's the time for accumulation of doing, of setting yourself up. So people feel that they should be completely set up. But then we also, towards the end of that phase, move into the Vata phase of life, which is this natural pull towards wisdom, towards letting go, and a different kind of power. And people, as you mentioned, who are sort of more pitta dominant or more type A, can really struggle with that discomfort. So many women feel that in this season, moving from like pitta and then transitioning into that sort of Vata phase is like they're losing themselves, and they're having to struggle with the identity of that, and they interpret that resistance to something being wrong when actually it's just the beginning of one of the most potent and powerful phases of their entire life if they let it be. But yeah, I think there's like that identity issue that sort of we can struggle with as well, set by the expectations we've set upon ourselves, and then the natural time of life that we're moving through, the phases that we're moving through. So what would you say is the difference between having like this notable life transition to a midlife crisis, so to speak, and how do you actually tell them apart when you're in the middle of it, when both can feel a little bit turbulent?
Well, I think understanding yourself, there's a theme that's coming through our chats, and it's understanding yourself, understanding your patterns, and noticing how you're feeling in a given moment. So what you've just described is absolutely happening to me at the moment. So I've gone from being incredibly fit, focused, directed, lots of energy, feeling really clear on where I want to go and the person that I want to be as I'm showing up to my clients and my friends and my family. However, hormones are giving me a bit of a run for the money, and things are changing. My body is changing. It can't keep up. I'm noticing that I'm walking slower. I said to my husband the other day, you know, I used to run around our K loop without giving another thought. Now the thought of running 10K fills me with dread. So those sorts of things, you know, can be quite confronting. And that's where modalities and systems like Ayurveda can be really, really helpful in terms of understanding it's natural, normal and predictable. I think the problem comes is when we start to push against the universe and we push against the natural order of things. And when we do that, we're not allowing the calmness and almost the river to take us. We're pushing against the river, and that's exhausting. So when you say what's the difference between, you know, a transition and a midlife crisis, the word that comes to mind is acceptance.
Yeah, so true, so true. And I think that is so true because you take that transitional aspect with acceptance and with contentment and with excitement and exploring what that can mean for you in this next phase. And even though any sort of change there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. And that's not easy. Like, it's not always easy. But if you do that with acceptance, you're embracing the transition. Whereas when you sort of hit this crisis point, it's like you're almost trying to either rapidly change who you were, or you are in such deep grief and clinging to every bit of identity that you had in your youth up until now. And life goes in seasons and cycles. And so it's inevitable that we are going to transition and cycle as a human being. But you're holding and sort of pulling at that sense of self and sense of identity, that it becomes like this chaotic crisis within your mind, within your body, within how you show up, within how you present yourself. I mean, what comes to mind when we say midlife crisis, it's usually that middle-aged man going or getting a red Ferrari, right? So trying to still like symbolize that sex, money, power sort of symbol that they feel is sort of going. And like for a woman, I don't know, it's the same sort of thing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many different kind of stories I could relate to that. But one thing that keeps popping up is when you have a daughter, how confronting that is. And I say confronting, maybe I'm using the wrong word, but you've got this girl who is in essence part of you, and she's growing, she's exploring herself, and she's finding out who she is in the world. But there's also this reflection of yourself and the younger part of you back. And there's this innocence and curiosity and future ahead for her. And so when you have those moments and you look at, well, certainly for me, when I look at my daughter, there's also the many missed opportunities or the choices that I made that made my life go in that direction instead of that direction. And it's not to say that you sort of sit and ruminate about all the things that you could have had and you don't have, but it's holding up a mirror that you are making way for the next generation of daughter to come through. And I think any listeners who do have daughters will have that understanding of how triggering in a way it can be. And I've found that some of my pain points with my daughter is the unhealed stuff from my childhood or my teenagehood. And so I've become very aware of when something happens in her life. I've become aware that when I'm reactive, often it can be nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. So a question that I ask myself is this her problem or is it unresolved stuff from my childhood? Because, they are little mini yous that have got their own expression and their own soul's journey. And my age, I look at my body changing, and then I look at how beautiful my daughter is. And again, it's beauty inside and out, right? So I'm not just talking merely aesthetics, but it is. There is an element of, things are going south. Things that I didn't even know I had. I've got no boobs and they're going south. Like, how is that even a thing? Your skin changes, your hair color changes. You no longer are noticed. For women of our age, we become invisible. And I did not think that was a thing until it became a thing. And it's like, okay. So you've got this wise sage at the other end where people listen to, and then you've got these young beauties, vibrance, and this kind of late 40s. It's just, you're not.
You're the middle child.
It's like with the middle child. It's exactly it, mate. So I have found that personally really insightful for me. Like, the things that I get triggered her about, or she might say something, I stop and I ask myself that question: is this hers or is it mine? And a lot of the time it's mine, and then I get curious about that and put it to bed. And like you say, there's a kind of a bit of a grieving process around youth, grieving for your youth.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so interesting what you said. It's like with your daughter, and you're having these sort of reflections of your past, and almost it's like it's almost a process of grieving the past, but it could be in a healthy way, because it's like you're grateful and thankful, and now you're seeing it blossoming through this beautiful being that you've created. And yeah, sometimes it's a little bit sad that we don't have that youth anymore, but you're getting to revisit that. And I think also makes you aware of our individual dharmic path. And so in Ayurveda, we talk a lot about Dharma, that soul's true purpose, and the path is a path you walk with complete awareness and ethics and essence. And so much of what is happening in this life stage is dharmic recalibration. So all of the things that you think you should have done or your path went this way is all part of your dharmic path. But now is the chance where we do get to enter that wise womanhood, where we can really enter the stage of dharmic recalibration, where the roles and identities that served the first half of your life start to feel a little now misaligned. And it's not like we're failing. It's not like we're falling apart. It's that we're growing. And it's your Dharma asking you to live more fully and more authentically than it ever has been before. And as we were actually speaking about before we hit record, we were talking about you just give less fucks, really, because you know that life is moving forward, and the more quicker life moves forward as each day goes on, we are getting closer and closer to mid age and beyond. And that's a really scary realization. So we know that the time we have here is so precious because we realize that time isn't short. I mean, is short, it's not here forever. It's not on our side forever. And so we're more discerning with the decisions we make, with the people we hang out with the way we voice what we need.
So, question for you then, mate. How do we, because a lot of people that I know and speak to, it's Groundhog Day. They've, at this time of life, we've got the mortgages, we've often sandwiched in between teenage children and parents that perhaps need us a little bit more. Finances are not in the best shape of their lives, and it can become really Groundhog Day. So how do our listeners, knowing that life is accelerating beyond 40, how do we stop the panic button of like, oh my gosh, I might die tomorrow, but actually I've got to do the groceries and, I've forgotten to book an appointment for my hairdresser.
Yeah.
How do we do that, mate?
Well, I think it always comes back to nervous system regulation, especially in this time of our life, because as I think I mentioned last episode or the episode before that we had together, like how much our hormones now impact our nervous system and how we are less resilient to stress. And so if we can't recalibrate the nervous system on a daily basis, meaning that we do have to take time at the end of our day to breathe, to ground, to do the meditation, to do all the things that so many people say to do, but we don't do. We actually really have to start implementing those things, because we can listen to this podcast, we can read all the books, we can go to different courses and workshops, but until we actually start to integrate any of that information, we're not embodying that as wisdom, and we're not making changes at a cellular level. We're just taking on the information. So we have to make these small changes in our daily lives to help nurture and regulate our nervous system. I also think that if we're talking about these sort of life transitions, we get to this age, mid-age, and we realize we're doing something we don't want to do, but we still have to pay the mortgage, right? And so often we're trying to find a different career as well. A lot of, women at this age, either all of their kids have gone through school or now they're at school and they've got more time and, they're really keen to re-enter the workforce, or they've been doing something that they're not that passionate about and want to change careers, because there's this struggle with, okay, I did my mothering, or I climbed the corporate ladder, whatever you did in sort of that peak pitta period. And now I'm feeling disconnected to a purpose because I've done that, and it doesn't like that part of me or that identity is now sort of disintegrating. So we're clutching on to, well, how can I make the rest of my life have meaning? And what is that? And so in the West, we think, well, to have meaning is to be productive, and to be productive is to do that in some sort of career. So where people can see we're being productive and, having meaning. But actually, when we talk about Dharma and being on this sort of dharmic path, that's not what it is. There's nowhere in the Vedic text that says Dharma is your job or your career. It's about, like you always say, getting to really know yourself now, getting to understand yourself, and living each day and showing up as the person you want to be, so that you are acting and behaving and being that person who has those sort of ethical, wonderful insights, and that comes from a replenished nervous system. And then there's also the part of, yes, we're busy, we have to pay the bills, we've still got kids, we've got aging parents. We also can't neglect the part of ourselves that yearns for joy. And that has to be a priority within our week, within our day even. And I think that's a lot of the time we think we're too busy to find joy. But if we can actually, go back to that dance class that, you might see, say your daughter's now doing some dancing and, reflecting on, oh, doesn't she look beautiful dancing? Well, why can't you go and do dancing? Like, why can't you do that if that's something you've always wanted to do? Add joy. I mean, Ayurveda has these 4 pillars of life, and one of them is actually pleasure. It's pleasure and joy, and that is a pillar of life. So is wealth, like abundance and wealth at a healthy, non-attached level. So is Dharma, and so is finding our liberation, our moksha. And they're the pillars that we sort of have to sort of incorporate into this busy life in small, meaningful ways. I don't know if I answered your question or if I just went on a big tangent, but
Oh, I love it. It's just so good, and it always weaves back to Ayurveda, doesn't it? There's an answer in, and that's why it's a way of life. And to your point, the joy piece, um, there is nothing like having a laugh. And we've got so serious. I know I've been so serious the last couple of years, but when you crack a joke or you do something funny and somebody's eyes light up, and that that's as a direct result of you being present, connected, and not future thinking, oh, I've got to go get the groceries, I've got to do this, and oh my gosh, isn't you can see that human connection piece and how that ripple effect can be so huge on people. So if all of us just had one intention to sprinkle some joy in their day to at least one person, that ripple effect then goes down into their day, and then they transfer it into their communications with other people. I think, yeah, earlier you talked about being productive, and we've just completely curtailed a really important and essential ingredient for happiness and flexibility and resilience, and that is the joy piece.
yeah.
I see it all the time in sport, teams that are not doing well. They're grumpy as fuck. They come to training with upside down faces, like they're just not happy. They're serious. They make mistakes. They're serious again. They blame others. Who wants to carry on playing that sport? And when you turn it around and you have a meaning that is more than winning, or a meaning that is more than earning $1, all of a sudden the energy changes. When the energy changes, you get a different outcome, don't you? So
Yeah.
again, if you're looking at how that relates to transition, how
Mm.
can we do this in a way that brings joy and humor and sparkle? And when you do it like that, all of a sudden life changes, doesn't it? And the perspective
Absolutely.
changes.
Imagine if you woke up every morning and you thought to yourself, my meaning today, my purpose today is to bring someone a sprinkle of joy.
Yeah.
And that was your whole purpose. You
Yep.
woke up and your mission was just to bring someone a sprinkle of joy. And it didn't matter what job you were going to, whether you liked or didn't like that job, because within that day, you might bring someone a sprinkle of joy. And that was your purpose and meaning. Like, it would make, your perspective on life so different and so much more meaningful. And I want to sort of bring this back to relationships as well, because I know one of the earlier podcasts we did was on friendships in your 40s, and that was a big hit. A lot of people resonated with that because friendships shift so much in this season, in this transitional season. So we did sort of cover that in that episode, so you can go back and listen to that. But even with long-term romantic partnerships, they also can change in this season. Again, hormones can also affect that. But hormones aside, there is, this time of life when maybe one person in this deep transition period is having this sort of new lease on life or transitioning in a different way, and they're sort of outgrowing who they were, but the other isn't. How do we manage that in relationships, whether a friendship or a long-term romantic partnership?
I've actually had a coaching session with my husband on this one, so I can talk to
How?
it very
Thank you.
specifically. So, my husband and I were very different in character. So, I'm sort of more out there, action orientated. If I think of something, I'm going to do it. I'm quite spontaneous. My hubby's more realistic and logical thinking, and kind of looks at. He's the calm, and I'm the roll, not the roller coaster, but you know
Oh,
what I mean. You
let's be
the
real here.
and so anyway, I put it this way, probably a traditional Kiwi marriage, it would be his way, get married, do things together, go on holidays together, die together. That sort of
Yeah.
very flat, but
Mhm.
lovely, consistent. My way of living is have my kids, love hard, give them everything that they need to go out there and be kick ass. And then when you leave, kids, I'm getting in my camper van and I'm going off to see the world, which is
Like
you and I.
me.
That's pretty. So Phil and Greg will be hanging out and
Yeah.
we'll be off doing our thing. To be honest, I think that's quite normal. My mum and dad were very similar. So my dad was quite happy as he aged to stay at home, do what he'd always done, tinker around in the house, watch the horse racing on a Saturday afternoon, watch the football that evening. Whereas my mum was like, no, I'm going off to London. I'm going to Japan. I'm going to here, there, and everywhere, Dubai on a camel. Like she just did it. So I grew up assuming that was normal. So anyway, Greg and I get married. We have our kids. We do the thing, and we hit our 40s. And it started to dawn on me that maybe he wouldn't want to do 3-6 months in India once my kids had left home, or maybe he wouldn't want to climb the 400 mountains that I've decided that I'm going to climb when I'm 60. And so we did have the conversation. It was like, okay, well, where's this going to go, and what's this going to look like? And we had this brilliant coaching session with he's actually a sports psychologist, but he and we sort of said, is that all right? Are we okay to be two different people? Does that mean that our relationship's going to fail? And he used the analogy of like a rope. You've got a rope and it's one rope, but one goes in one direction, one goes in another, and then maybe you make a knot of it and you come together again, and then it keeps evolving, keeps going. And so his thing was knowing who you are as a person, but then knowing who you are as a couple, and then really working on that bit as a couple. So you celebrate each other's successes, but you always come back and you will always tie yourselves back together. So wherever your lives go, sometimes you'll be far away from each other, but you'll always come back to each other. And that's what Greg and I have sort of taken away from our work with him, was we might not have the same interests in some areas, but we are really, really strong in others. So as long as we work on keeping that strength and that unity, then we can go off and do our own thing to make our soul feel like it's not being trapped, but we will always bring it together.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, again, to know what you want out of your life and be with a partner that is fully accepting of that, and then being that person for them. I've done quite a bit of work with men in my coaching practice. And when I've done workshops with them, I'm like, go do the fishing, go do the hunting, go on your boys' weekends away. And they are shocked. A lot of them are shocked. They're sort of saying, so what, you're telling me that I can go home to my wife and say, I'm going to go off and do this? And I'm like, absolutely, because that's what she was attracted to you for. You're just assuming that she doesn't want you to do that. Just know that if you plan it and you're not just dropping the kids and off you go MIA for 48 hours, if you plan it with your year, then it's going to bring that vitality and joy and connection and curiosity back into your relationship. So,
Yeah.
it comes back down to communication, knowing each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think but like you said, it's like coming back together. So it's not like say the husband, because I think there's also a lot of husbands out there, maybe wives too, but I've had like friends who have had partners who just think they can do whatever they want. And they expect the wife is going to be managing the kids at home and doing all of that. And they'll go to work, then they'll have a golf weekend like every weekend, or go for a surf trip. And there's that aspect. So some listeners might hear that and go, well, my husband's already doing that. And it's like actually hell. So
Why has she just said that?
I
Don't
guess
come
the
on a
key,
workshop with Anna.
the key point is that they come back. So like if they're
Yes.
going off and they're doing their golfing weekends, surfing trips, they're coming back and they're helping out, and then they're also giving the opportunity or the option for their partner to go and
Yes.
do the same. So you're having your
Absolutely.
independence. That's what we have also come to realize in our relationship. Like I'm a real like free spirit. I need my space. I love doing some solo travel. And then we love doing some travel together. And at first I would say to Phil, like, well, I've just booked this retreat in Bali. I'm gonna go. You can book something. You do. So he goes, oh, I'd rather do stuff with the family. Like if I'm gonna go, I want you guys to come. And I think he was just nervous about doing something on his own. And it was only a couple of years ago that he actually went and did like a conference in Bali on his own. And he really like loved the freedom and loved and enjoyed it and actually embraced it. I'm like, see, it's actually really good to do those things, come back, speak about your experiences, then go do something together. So I think it's always about the coming back and sharing the load. It's not just like one side sort of
Yeah.
just doing what they want all of the time.
But then again, it comes down to that communication piece, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
what does our year look like? What are we wanting to do with it? How do we want to express ourselves? I mean, nobody marries somebody to see their worst parts, and so actually, how can I, and a hockey player asked me this yesterday actually about how can, when I'm getting frustrated when a player's not doing what they need to do on the court, and I'm like, well, you're probably not going to get the best out of them if you tell them how shit they are. And it's the same in a marriage. It's, when you've been with somebody for 25 years, it's really easy to see all the things that like are really irritating. So, a question to ask is, how can I bring out the best in this person? What strengths do they have that they're not displaying at the moment? And why might that be the case? And how can I then best support that version of them coming back? And so it comes, yeah, I mean, but with that is time. But I think, and being present and having good chats with each other. Like, what do we want our life to look like when the kids leave home? We're so busy in it that we forget that 17 years are going to pass, and before we know it, they're going to be gone. And if we haven't nurtured that part and we don't have a bit of a game plan, then that can be, yeah, where
Yeah.
problems arise.
Absolutely. And I think, if you do embrace this transitional period of your life, then there is a concept in Ayurveda called sattva, which is the quality of clarity and truth. And as women move through this life stage, their sattva actually increases if they do it, as we said, with acceptance. So their tolerance for anything that isn't authentic will just drop significantly. And relationships that were held together by convenience or obligation or an older version of yourself, they'll naturally start to strain. And so I think this is where we see a lot of relationships will either make it through because that clarity and that truth will form a greater bond because you communicate and you work through it together, or it will drop off. And so you've got to also make that discernment and that choice, whether it be friendships or whatnot. Hopefully, if you've been together for so long in a romantic relationship, that it's actually like a point where you can say, all right, let's increase our communication and really work through it because you've been together for so long, and like you were saying, it's easy to see someone's flaws after being together for 25 years and really just hone in on those. But again, I loved what you said about, well, what was that clarity and truth that I saw in them in the beginning? And what actually is it that I can do to help support them be that version of themselves, or the version that, you know, makes them their higher self? Because that's who you're going to find that sort of deep attraction with once again. The same person, but in a deeper, different way in this phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I had it recently with my husband. He sent me a text and said, "What can we do to bring Anna back?" And I was going through the only way I could describe it was a grieving process. And I didn't know really what I was grieving for, but I hadn't felt that level of energy, low energy since my dad had died. And I just really loved him for that because he wasn't saying, hurry up. sort your shit out. Like, come on. Like, it was like, what can we do as a family to bring you back? And we'll do what it takes. And to be honest, just knowing that was, he was giving me the freedom to grieve and to feel like shit. I actually feel like I got through it a lot quicker.
Yeah. Know he's there, you've got his support. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, knowing that I'm being supported, knowing that I'm not going crazy, knowing that actually I am going through a letting go phase of my life, and that's hard for my pitta constitution to get
Yeah.
hold of. What do you mean you can't run 5 marathons
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2 days with no food? Yeah, so, but that being said, I know of people who have come to the conclusion that their time is up with their marriage, and they've done the right thing for themselves, the right thing for their partner, and they've done it in a way that's congruent and very difficult. They've had the courageous conversation, they've stepped into their power and done it for the greater good of the couple, and that has worked really well as well. So, doing the work, and often if one person's feeling it, the other person will be feeling something. So there comes a time where you can have a conversation that builds and you stay together, or you have a conversation and, another decision's made, and that's good as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, reflecting back on this conversation, it definitely is a time. It's an interesting time in life, that is for
Yeah,
sure.
it
But
really is.
they say on the other side is the golden years. And
Well, as long as I'm doing the golden years with friends like you, I don't care.
yeah, and I think we can make this part of the golden years because, it is your perspective on life, and it is how you treat this transitional period. It is like when you have the choice to decide what your life is going to look like for this next chapter, and yeah, go all in on it. Sometimes we're less fearful as we get older with these type of things, and yeah, we can actually really transform our life for the better and do it differently. We've learned a lot of lessons through the living that we have done. We've learned what we want in our friendships. We've learned what we want in our partners. We've learned what makes us feel joy and happiness, so we can really go for that, I guess. So I'm going to bring it to a bit of a close with some rapid fire questions for you, Anna, because you're so good on the spot. I love what you come up with.
Gosh, anyway, let's go. Let's do it. Let's be rapid.
Okay. What is the biggest lie women tell themselves in transition?
What's the biggest lie? That other
So it's
people are doing
rapid
it better.
fire.
Other people are doing it better.
Other people are doing it better.
Yeah.
One word, finish this sentence. Transition is.
Fucked.
Okay. Fucked. Okay. No, we're meant to be telling.
I was just looking at you for the shock factor there.
We're meant to tell them it's great.
No, transition is beautiful.
Mate, that is completely different to what you just said. Which one is it? Can it be a bit of both?
Depends on your day.
Fair enough. Okay. The most powerful question you ask someone who is stuck. Someone feels really stuck in this phase of their life. What is one powerful question that you can either ask them or they can ask themselves?
What's Harmony's number?
What's my number? No, do you want to ask?
What's the difference that's going to make a difference?
Yeah, what's the difference that's going to... See, you're a wise woman. You're entering your wise womanhood. What is the difference that is going to make a difference? Love it. Okay, last one. What you know now about transition that you wish you'd known at the age of 35?
It's not as bad as it sounds.
Mate, you've just made it sound so bad because I said, what is your one word transition is? And you said fucked. So,
can I just caveat that with?
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Okay.
It's confusing. And it's like one day it's fucked and the other day it's beautiful. One day it's grief, the other day it's joy. And that is the whole part of transition. The problem with humans is that we try to make sense of it all instead of just going down the river.
Maybe it's not even transition. Maybe it's just life.
It's just
life.
Humans. A dog doesn't come to this world and go, I've hit 7, I'm halfway through it, what's on the other side? You know, us
Exactly.
humans, we complicate it all.
Stop complicating shit. Stop questioning everything and just go live your life spreading joy. That is it.
Spread the joy,
Just spread the
spread the
joy
joy.
and all will be good. That is our takeaway today.
And
Think
get Harmony's number.
and take my number and spread more joy. I love that. Well, like always, it's been a joy speaking with you, Anna. Like I said, I was a little flat when I came onto the podcast this morning, and now I'm feeling so much more uplifted just from your energy and your raw honesty. I love that. I just love that so much about you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you to all of our listeners who tuned in today. We hope that this episode resonated with you. If so, share it with a friend. Go spread some joy. And if you want to learn more about Ayurveda, come and visit us at the ayurvedaalchemist.com.au. We've got lots of different wonderful offerings and courses there. Or my website, harmonyinspiredhealth.com.au, if you want to book in for a one-to-one Ayurvedic consultation or any acupuncture, Ayurveda, or buy my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her. And if you would love a wonderful one-to-one session with the gorgeous Anna, you can find her at
www.freshcoaching.me, but Instagram for my athletes is Fresh Coaching NZ or Untapped NZ. Some exciting stuff coming for youth athletes or athletes that are wanting just to, bridge the gap between that grassroots and high performance, get to know themselves better. So keep an eye out because there's some fun things coming on.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much, everybody.